So one time when I was in the Middle East, it gets really hot there, like 110, 115 degrees. And the place I was staying at the time, kind of the air conditioning wasn't working too well. Some rooms had air conditioning, some rooms didn't. But we were on the ground floor, so it was floor ventilation because that was easier. And it's so dry there that pier and beam is fine. You don't have to worry about flooding or anything like that. And so since we had floor vents, I remember it would get so hot at night that I would take off the vents because I wanted more airflow.
So every night, I would strip down naked to go to sleep
Because it was so hot, and I would just sleep with like just a sheet.
and the gun next to me in case something happened in the middle of the night.
And I had this clock in my room. I had a digital clock, and I would keep my room in total darkness except for that one clock. It's red. And you have long days in the CIA. You have 12, 15-hour days. So I come home one day.
I strip naked.
And I get in bed. I'm just really having trouble going to sleep. I just had a long day. It was really difficult. And I hear this sound in my room. And I'm like, I've not heard that sound before. It's kind of like a scratching. And every time I'm almost asleep, I hear more scratching. What is that sound? And so I'm facing the wall. The clock is on the other side of the room. And I know where everything is in relation to that clock because they train us to do that. They train us to know our rooms and our situations really well. So I know where everything is in relation to that clock, even though it's pitch black in my room. And so I turn over, and I keep hearing this scratching, and I was like, that's weird.
Well, I realized that I can't see the clock.
The clock is just not there, but
There's a red orb.
where it was. And I'm thinking,
There's a demon in my room. And I'm naked.
so I kind of start freaking out. And they train us not to freak out, but I didn't know. I mean, I'm Greek Orthodox. I believe in demons. So,
I pull out my gun.
and I turn on the light. I'm like,
Where are you?
and there's nobody in my room. And I realize that
There's this possum in my room.
and I don't know why I was expecting somebody.
The possum scared me more.
I didn't want to get out of bed because I was afraid that there was one under my bed. So I had to call in one of my colleagues to make sure that there wasn't a possum underneath my bed.
And you don't have any clothes on at this point.
No, so I had to figure something out. I had to figure out.
So I just cover up with the bed sheet.
I don't know. My colleague, he comes in.
He's like, why are you naked? I'm like, that's not what this is about.
That's not what this is about.
There's a possum.
Well, the possum had left. He had crawled back into the vent.
The good thing is, the saving grace is that the whole complex was interconnected with the air vents. And so,
We hear screaming down the hall.
and it turns out that our colleague Fred, the possum had entered his room, and he was just as scared. So the guy that came into my room,
Was Fred naked? I don't remember. He might have been, but I don't remember.
but the guy who came into my room, he starts running, which is great for me because,
I was able to put on some pants at the very least.
And so then I'm carrying my gun. I also go out to Fred's room, and he's there, and he's freaking out too.
Except there's somebody else in his room, okay? He wasn't supposed to have somebody in there.
and so we're kind of double freaking out now because
Guy or girl?
It was another man. He was in his room. I don't think that they were doing anything.
But he was there. So we're kind of freaking out because there's a guy that we don't recognize. We're all supposed to be here, and it's only supposed to be us 7 guys. So we don't recognize this dude. We don't know why he's here. And there's the possum in there. And we're still all a little bit shaken up by that one because that one's just not normal. But now there's a guy. And so now the instincts that I had originally when the possum was in my room is now actually kicking in. And so
We start grilling this guy. The possum's just hanging out in the corner where the vent was.
Fred says, no, it's okay. He's an agent. We had to meet here.
Because our meeting didn't work out.
Well, we didn't trust him because now we're thinking that Fred's been compromised. So again, this house is pier and beam, and we have this possum problem. And to make sure that we don't have more later,
We sent this agent under the house and we're like, we're gonna kill you if you don't go and catch these possums.
because we need our sleep. We have long days. And it was a little weird because I said I was able to get pants on, but I was really actually
Just in my underwear.
so, me, this other guy from down the hall, we're in Fred's room.
He's got a man in his room.
and a possum.
I'm just in my underwear with a gun.
And so
We're holding this guy at gunpoint. We send him under the house to go get the possum.
and he's like, oh, I don't want to do it. He's like, too bad.
You're going under the house.
And so anyway, he ended up catching the possum, and then we found out later that Fred and his agent were actually compromised, and they did actually have to meet there. So could have been worse.
We all thought he was gay.
But it turns out he did just have to meet there because it was the last best case scenario. And but he ended up going back to the States after that because they didn't trust him. He had to go through a whole litany of tests and questions
To make sure that he wasn't actually gay.